The marble floors of Winters International gleamed under the morning light as Sophia Chen adjusted her blazer one final time. 6 months of rejections had led to this moment, and she refused to let her trembling hands betray her nerves. The 60-story tower stretched above her like a monument to everything she'd never had, everything she desperately needed. Her mother's words echoed in her mind as she approached the reception desk. "You have determination born from necessity, Mia." Alina Chen had worked double shifts at the diner for 15 years. Her rough hands a testament to dreams deferred for her daughter's future. Today, Sophia would honor that sacrifice. Chen, Diana Rodriguez, the HR manager, appeared with a professional smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Mr. Winters is ready for you." The elevator ride to the top floor felt like ascending to another world. Through the glass walls, Sophia glimpsed conference rooms, where decisions worth millions were made daily. Felt like armor that might not protect her on this battlefield of silk ties and designer heels. Ethan Winters' corner office took her breath away. Floor 2 ceiling windows revealed the city sprawling below like a kingdom waiting to be conquered. Behind an imposing mahogany desk sat the man himself, younger than his photograph suggested. With dark hair and green eyes that seemed to catalog every detail of her appearance, Miss Chen. His voice carried an authority that made her spine straighten involuntarily. "Please sit." Out. Sophia settled into the leather chair, acutely aware of how her heartbeat thundered in the sudden silence. Ethan studied her resume with the same intensity a surgeon might examine X-rays. "Impressive academic record," he said finally. "Top of your class, 3 languages, business degree, yet you lack corporate experience entirely. Tell me what makes you believe you can handle the demands of working directly with me?" The rehearsed answer she'd practiced countless times suddenly felt inadequate under his penetrating stare. "Mr. Winters, I may not have worked in a corporate environment, but I understand sacrifice. I've watched my mother give everything for our family's future. Success isn't about experience, it's about giving everything you have to your goals." Something flickered across his features, too quick to interpret. He made a note, then leaned back in his chair. The silence stretched between them like a taut wire. "This position requires absolute trust and loyalty," he said, his tone shifting to something more serious. "I need to understand who you really are beyond what's written on paper." Sophia nodded, though unease crept up her spine like ice water. "Are you involved with anyone romantically?" The question caught her off guard, but she managed to keep her voice steady. "No, sir. I've been focused on my studies and helping my family." Ethan stood and walked to the window, his hands clasped behind his back. When he spoke again, his voice carried a strange tension. "In my experience, people who haven't been compromised by relationships tend to be more dedicated to their work. I believe in dedication, Mr. Winters. When I commit to something, I give it everything I have." He turned back to face her, and for a heartbeat, she saw something vulnerable in his expression before the professional mask returned. "Miss Chen." Obi's voice dropped too barely above a whisper. "Are you a virgin?" The words hit her like a physical blow. Sophia's mouth opened, but no sound emerged. The office suddenly felt smaller, the air thicker. She stared at him, certain she'd misheard. "I'm sorry, could you repeat that?" "Asked if you're a virgin." He said it as calmly as if inquiring about her typing speed. "I know it's personal, but I have my reasons." Every instinct screamed at her to leave, to report this inappropriate question. But something in his eyes held her captive, a mixture of intensity and genuine curiosity that seemed to transcend mere invasion of privacy. "I don't understand how that's relevant to the position," she managed. "Answer the question, please." The silence stretched endlessly. Sophia thought of her mother waiting at home, of the stack of rejection letters, of dreams that hung in the balance of this surreal moment. "Yes," she whispered, her eyes fixed on her folded hands. When she finally looked up, Ethan's expression had changed entirely. His breathing seemed different, and a new tension filled the space between them, like an electrical storm about to break. "The position is yours if you want it," he said softly. 120,000 annually, plus benefits, plus a housing allowance that will move your mother to a better neighborhood. The numbers made her dizzy. It was more money than she'd dared to dream. "There's one condition. You report. Only to me you don't discuss our work with anyone. Can you handle that level of discretion? As Sophia nodded and shook his hand, that same electric current coursed through her. When their eyes met, she saw something that made her pulse quicken. Something that suggested her new job would be far more complicated than she'd ever imagined. Walking out of the building an hour later, one question echoed in her mind like an unresolved melody. What exactly had she just signed up for? 3 weeks into her new life, Sophia discovered that luxury came with invisible chains. The penthouse apartment Ethan had arranged overlooked Central Park, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering views that most people only saw in magazines. Her mother had cried when they moved in, touching the marble countertops like they might disappear. "I still can't believe it's real," Elena whispered, running her fingers along the silk curtains. "My daughter, working for the most powerful man in the city." Power, Sophia was learning, was a seductive and dangerous thing. Her days began at 7 sharp, when a black car arrived to escort her to Winters International. The driver, Marcus, never spoke beyond polite greetings. But she'd caught him watching her in the rearview mirror with an expression she couldn't decipher. At the office, Sophia handled contracts worth more than small countries' GDP. She organized meetings between world leaders and business moguls, her fingers flying across keyboards that controlled empires. Yet it was the quiet moments that unsettled her most. "You're adapting faster than I expected," Ethan commented one Thursday evening as they reviewed quarterly reports. The office was empty except for them, the cleaning crew having finished hours ago. "I had a good teacher," Sophia replied, not looking up from her computer screen. "Look at me when I'm speaking to you." The command in his voice made her obey instantly. When their eyes met across the space between their desks, that familiar electric current sparked between them. "You're different from the others," he said quietly. "Previous assistants were either too intimidated to be useful or too aggressive, thinking they could manipulate their way into my personal life. And what am I?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. Ethan's smile was slow, predatory. "You're dangerous." Before she could ask what he meant, his phone buzzed. The spell broke as he answered with his usual clipped professionalism. But Sophia caught the way his eyes lingered on her as he spoke. That night she couldn't sleep. The penthouse felt too large, too quiet. She stood at the window, watching the city lights twinkle below when her phone chimed. "Check your email," her heart hammered as she opened her laptop. The message contained a single attachment, a document marked confidential. "Sophia, what I'm about to show you will change how you see everything. It's a question I asked during your interview wasn't random. It was necessary. I need someone untouched by the corruption that defines this world. Someone pure enough to help me destroy it from within. If you're ready to learn the truth about Winters International, meet me tomorrow night at the address below. Come alone. Trust no one else. It's not even Diana." Ethan, the address led to a warehouse in the industrial district, a world away from the gleaming towers of downtown. Sophia's hands shook as she called a taxi, her mind racing with possibilities. Was this some elaborate test? A trap? The warehouse appeared abandoned, its windows dark and covered with grime. But as she approached the side door, it opened before she could knock. Ethan stood silhouetted against dim lighting, his usual business. Attire replaced by dark jeans and a black sweater that made him look younger, more human. "You came," he said, relief evident in his voice. "I almost didn't." Smart. Following strange men to abandoned warehouses isn't typically advisable. She stepped inside, and her breath caught. The warehouse had been transformed into something between a command center and an art gallery. Multiple computer screens lined one wall, displaying financial data, news feeds, and what looked like surveillance footage. But it was the photographs covering another wall that made her stomach clench. Images of politicians shaking hands with known criminals, CEOs meeting in shadowy locations, bank transfers with astronomical amounts, and at the center of it all, photographs of her former colleagues at Winters International. "What is this?" she whispered. "The truth." Ethan moved to stand beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne mixed with something darker, more dangerous. Winters International isn't just a corporation, Sophia. It's the center of a web that controls half the world's illegal activities. Money laundering, arms dealing, human trafficking, all hidden behind legitimate business transactions. Legs. Felt weak, and you're part of it. I inherited it. His voice carried a bitterness that made her look at him sharply. My father built this empire, and when I turned 30, he handed me the keys to hell itself. But I'm not him, Sophia. I never was. Then why continue it? Because dismantling something this massive requires being inside it. He turned to face her fully, his green eyes intense in the dim lighting. I've spent 3 years gathering evidence, building cases, waiting for the right moment to bring it all down. But I needed someone I could trust completely. Someone who couldn't be bought, blackmailed, or seduced. Someone virgin, she said, the pieces finally clicking into place. Someone untouched by their corruption. He stepped closer, and she could see the exhaustion in his features, the weight of secrets he'd carried alone. I needed someone pure. Enough to help me burn it all to the ground? The revelation should have terrified her. Instead, Sophia felt something dangerous unfurling in her chest. Not fear, but excitement. What do you need me to do? Help me steal $50 million and destroy the most powerful criminal organization in the country, without getting us both killed. As he outlined his plan, Sophia realized that her carefully ordered world had just exploded into 1,000 pieces. But standing there in that warehouse, watching this complex, haunted man reveal his deepest secrets, she knew she'd already made her choice. She was all in. The USB drive felt like a loaded weapon in Sophia's pocket as she walked through Winters International's marble lobby. 2 months of careful planning had led to this moment, and failure would mean more than losing her job. It would mean disappearing. Entirely? Morning, Miss Chen? The security guard nodded with his usual smile. If only he knew she was about to help steal enough evidence to topple governments. Her reflection in the elevator's polished walls showed a woman transformed. The nervous girl from the interview had been replaced by someone harder, more calculating. Ethan's late-night training sessions had taught her to read people like financial statements, to spot lies like accounting errors. But they'd taught her other things too. Focus, she whispered to herself as the elevator climbed. The memory of Ethan's hands teaching her to pick locks. His breath warm against her neck as he showed her how to disable security cameras. Scent. Heat coursing through her veins at the worst possible moment. The top floor was unusually quiet. Diana Rodriguez was at a conference in Miami, exactly as they'd planned. Most executives were in morning meetings, leaving the administrative areas. Nearly empty? Sophia's heart hammered as she approached her desk, every nerve hyper-aware of the security cameras tracking her movements. According to Ethan's intel, she had exactly 18 minutes before the first guard rotation. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, accessing files that should have been impossible to reach. The passwords Ethan had obtained through months of careful observation opened door after digital door. Bank records, shipping manifests, communication logs that detailed transactions worth hundreds of millions. 15 minutes. The USB drive hummed as it copied terabytes of incriminating data. Sophia. She spun, her blood turning to ice. James Morrison, the CFO, stood in the doorway with a coffee cup and a confused expression. Working early again? His smile was friendly, but his eyes were sharp as they took in her position at the computer. Just catching up on some reports. For Mr. Winters, she managed, her voice surprisingly steady. He's lucky to have someone so dedicated. James stepped closer, and Sophia's hand instinctively moved toward the USB drive. Though I have to say, you've been working some unusual hours lately. Marcus mentioned dropping you off in some interesting neighborhoods. The driver, of course, he'd been reporting back. I'm sorry, the warehouse district. Late-night meetings. James set his coffee cup down and moved around her desk. It's very interesting for an executive assistant. 12 minutes. The download was only 70% complete. I think there's been some misunderstanding. Oh, I don't think so. James's friendly mask slipped entirely. See? We've been watching you, Sophia. You and our idealistic young CEO? Did you really think his little rebellion would go unnoticed? Terror clawed at her throat, but she forced herself to remain calm, I have no idea what you're talking about. Of course you don't. He reached into his jacket, and Sophia's world narrowed to the gun that appeared in his hand. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to erase whatever you've downloaded, and then you're going to walk out of this building and disappear. Forever. And if I refuse, then your mother's morning walk through Central Park becomes your last. The threat hit her like a physical blow. Elena's face flashed through her mind, her proud smile when she'd gotten this job, her tears of joy. At their new apartment. 9 minutes. 80% complete, you bastard.
Tactical.
James kept the gun trained on her while reaching for her computer. Nothing personal, you understand. Your collateral damage in a much larger game. That's when the lights went out. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting everything in hellish red shadows. In the confusion, Sophia heard James curse, saw the muzzle flash as he fired blindly in her direction. She rolled behind her desk as another shot shattered her monitor. The USB drive was still connected to the now-dead computer. The download. Incomplete. Backup power will restore the lights in 60 seconds, James called out. There's nowhere to run, Sophia. Take this easy on yourself. But she wasn't alone. Ethan appeared like a ghost in the emergency lighting, moving with lethal precision. The two men collided near the windows, James's gun skittering across the marble floor as they fought. The drive. Ethan shouted as James landed a vicious punch. To his ribs. Sophia lunged for the USB, praying the partial download contained enough evidence. As her fingers closed around it, the main power restored, flooding the office with bright light. James had Ethan in a chokehold, his face purple with effort. But when he saw Sophia with the drive, his expression turned murderous. Me now, or I snap his neck. Time slowed to crystalline clarity. Sophia could see every option, every consequence. Hand over the drive, and they'd both die anyway. Keep it, and watch the man she'd come to care about more than her own safety die in front of her. Unless the gun lay 3 feet away. She'd never held a weapon in her life, but Ethan's training had covered more than just computer systems. Hand found the grip, the weight both foreign and familiar. Let him go, she said, her voice steady despite the earthquake in her chest. James laughed. You won't shoot? Good girls don't kill people. You're right. Sophia's smile was ice cold. But I'm not a good girl anymore. The shot echoed through the office like thunder. James Morrison crumpled to the floor, clutching his shoulder and screaming. Ethan gasped for air, his eyes wide with something between shock and admiration. We have to go, he said, struggling to his feet. Security will be here in minutes. But as they ran for the emergency stairs, Sophia knew they'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. The innocent girl who'd walked into that interview 3 months ago was gone forever. In her place stood someone harder, more dangerous. Someone willing to kill to protect what mattered. The question was no longer what she'd signed up for. The question was who she was becoming. The safe house was a penthouse suite overlooking the Hudson River, its windows tinted black against prying eyes. Sophia sat at the kitchen island, the USB drive before her like a loaded gun, while Ethan paced the living room with predatory intensity. The partial download contains enough evidence to bring down half the board, he said, running his hands through his dark hair. But Morrison's people will be looking for us. It may be 12 hours before they track us down. Sophia's hands still trembled from the shooting. The memory of James Morrison's scream, the blood on her fingers as she'd pulled the trigger, played on an endless loop in her mind. I shot someone, she whispered. Ethan stopped pacing and moved to stand beside her. His fingers brushed against her cheek, surprisingly gentle. You saved my life. I could have killed him, but you didn't. You made a choice in an impossible situation. His green eyes searched her face. That takes courage most people don't possess. Space between them felt charged, electric. 3 months of working together, of stolen glances and careful touches, had built to this moment where pretense became impossible. Ethan. His name escaped her lips like a prayer. I know. His thumb traced her lower lip, and she saw her own. Desire reflected in his eyes. This complicates everything. Everything was already complicated. He laughed softly, the sound rough with want. True. When he kissed her, it was nothing like the gentle romance novels had promised. It was desperate, hungry, born from adrenaline, and the knowledge that they might not survive another day. Sophia's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer as 3 months of suppressed attraction exploded between them. Shouldn't, he murmured against her mouth, even as his hands tangled in her hair. Probably not, but they were already lost. Ethan lifted her onto the counter, his mouth trailing, fired down her neck as her legs wrapped around his waist. Every kiss tasted like danger and promise, every touch a claim neither could take back. Sophia. Her name on his lips sounded like both worship and warning. If we do this, there's no going back. Not from each other, not from what we've started. She looked into his eyes, seeing the man behind the billionaire facade. Haunted, driven, more vulnerable than he'd ever let anyone see. I don't want to go back. What followed was a claiming that went far beyond the physical. In the dim light of the safe house, Sophia discovered that innocence wasn't something that could be taken, only given. She gave it freely, completely, to the man who'd shown her how dangerous love could be. Later, wrapped in Egyptian cotton sheets that probably cost more than her old apartment's monthly rent, she traced patterns on Ethan's chest as he slept. The USB drive sat on the nightstand, a reminder that their stolen paradise had an expiration date. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Your mother is safe. For now. Union Square. Midnight. Come alone. A friend ice replaced the warmth in her veins. Sophia slipped from the bed, careful not to wake Ethan, and dressed quickly. The gun she'd taken from Morrison felt heavier now, its weight a reminder of how much she'd changed. Union Square at midnight was a study in shadows and streetlight. Sophia waited by the fountain, every nerve hyper-aware of movement in her peripheral vision. Punctual. I admire that in a woman. She spun, heart-hammering. Diana Rodriguez stepped. From behind a tree, her usual professional smile replaced by something colder. You're there inside, person. 20 years, actually. Diana's confession came with no shame, only mild amusement. Your predecessor figured it out too, eventually. Poor girl had an unfortunate accident with her brake lines. You killed her. The organization killed her. I simply facilitated it. Diana moved closer, her hand resting casually in her purse. Just like, I'm going to facilitate your cooperation. Where's my mother? Safe. Comfortable even. She's enjoying the executive suite at the Meridian Hotel, completely unaware that her life hangs in the balance. Diana's smile was sharp as glass. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to retrieve that USB drive and hand it over. In exchange, Alina lives to see another birthday. And Ethan. Mr. Winters has become a liability. His usefulness has expired. The words hit Sophia like bullets. You want me to betray him? I want you to choose. Your mother's life or your lover's crusade. Diana pulled a phone from her purse, showing Sophia a photograph of Alina sleeping peacefully in a hotel room. You have 1 hour. By Sophia's world. Narrowed to crystalline clarity, the choice Diana offered was no choice at all. But there was a third option, one that required the kind of courage she'd never known she possessed. I need proof my mother is alive. Diana pressed a button, and Elena's voice came through the speaker, sleepy and confused. Mia, they said you needed me to stay here tonight. Is everything okay? I'm fine, Mama. Go back to sleep. I'll see you soon. Diana ended the call with a satisfied smirk. 2 hours. Sophia, don't test me. As the older woman disappeared into the shadows, Sophia pulled out her own phone. The text she sent was simple. We need to talk. Now. Ethan's response came immediately. On my way. Standing in Union Square with the weight of impossible choices. Crushing down on her, Sophia realized that loving someone meant being willing to destroy everything to keep them safe. Even if it meant destroying yourself in the process. The game had changed again, but this time she intended to write the rules. The abandoned subway station beneath City Hall had been closed for decades, its platforms now home to shadows and secrets. Sophia stood at the edge of the tracks, the USB drive in one hand and a gun in the other, while the three most important people in her life converged like pieces on a chessboard. Ethan arrived first, his eyes wild with concern and barely contained fury. "You should have woken me, and let them kill you too." "I don't think so, Sophia. We can find another way." "There is no other way." She turned as footsteps echoed through the tunnels. Diana Rodriguez emerged from the darkness, no longer bothering with her professional facade. Behind her walked two men Sophia recognized from Winters International's security team. "Right on time," Diana said, her voice echoing off the tile walls. "I do appreciate punctuality. Where's my mother?" "Safe." "For now," Diana gestured to her companions. "But my patience has limits." That's when the third player entered the game. Alina Chen stepped from the shadows at the far end of the platform, her hands zip-tied behind her back, but her chin raised in defiance. The man pushing her forward wore the kind of expensive suit that screamed money and violence in equal measure. "Mama." Sophia's heart clenched as she saw the bruise on her mother's cheek. "I'm okay, Mia," Alina called out, her voice steady, despite her circumstances. "Don't you dare give them anything for me." Diana's laugh was sharp as breaking glass. How touching. A family reunion in the depths of hell. "Let her go," Ethan said, stepping forward. "Your fight is with me, not them." "On the contrary, Mr. Winters, my fight is with anyone who threatens the natural order." Diana pulled her own weapon, its barrel catching the dim light. 20 years I've worked to build this organization. I won't let some idealistic boy and his naive girlfriend destroy it." Sophia felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her like water. 3 months ago, she'd been a desperate girl looking for work. Now she stood in an abandoned subway tunnel, holding evidence that could topple governments, and a gun that had already tasted blood. "You want the drive?" Sophia held it up, her hand steady, despite the chaos in her chest. "Let my mother go, and it's yours." "Sophia, no," Ethan said. "I'm sorry." She looked at him, memorizing every line of his face. "I love you too much to watch you die for your principles." But as she stepped forward to make the exchange, her mother's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "That's not my daughter." Everyone froze. Alina Chen had spent 15 years working double shifts, watching people, reading their tells, and she'd raised Sophia to be smarter than her enemies. "My daughter would never surrender," Alina continued, her eyes locked on Sophia's. "She'd find the third option. The third option." Sophia's lips curved in a smile that would have made Diana Rodriguez proud. "You're right, Mama. I'm not that girl anymore." What happened next unfolded with choreographed precision. Sophia dove left as Ethan lunged right, both of them moving the instant before the lights went out. The explosion that followed came from carefully placed charges in the tunnel's support beams. Charges Sophia had positioned during her bathroom breaks over the past week. In the chaos of falling debris and emergency lighting, 3 shots rang. Out. When the dust settled, Diana Rodriguez lay motionless on the platform, her weapons several feet away. One of her men was unconscious under a pile of rubble. The other had simply vanished into the maze of maintenance tunnels. "The USB drive," Ethan gasped, bleeding from a cut on his forehead. Sophia held it up, miraculously intact, safe and sound. Alina Chen stood free, having been cut loose by the man who'd pushed her forward. Except he wasn't one of Diana's people at all. "Agent Marcus Sullivan, FBI," he said, showing his badge. "We've been tracking this organization for 3 years. Your evidence is exactly what we needed to bring down the entire network." "Marcus," Sophia said, understanding flooding through her. "You were never just a driver. Sorry for the deception. But we needed someone on the inside, and you two provided the perfect cover." As FBI agents swarmed the tunnel and paramedics checked Elena's injuries, Sophia found herself alone with Ethan for a moment. The man she'd come to love looked at her with something between awe and concern. "You've planned all of this," he said. "I planned for every contingency I could think of." She touched his face gently, including the one where I might lose you, and if it had gone wrong, then at least we'd have gone down fighting. 3 months later, Sophia Chen stood in the same courthouse where Diana Rodriguez and 17 co-conspirators had been sentenced to life in prison. But today wasn't about justice. Today was about new beginnings. "Do you, Sophia Chen, take Ethan Winters to be your lawfully wedded husband?" She looked into the green eyes that had first challenged her in that corner office. seeing the man who'd taught her that love meant being willing to burn down the world to protect what mattered? I do. The kiss that followed tasted like victory, and promise, like the future they'd fought so hard to claim. In the front row, Sophia Chen wiped tears from her eyes, her rough hands now soft from months of not having to work double shifts. Later, at the reception held in the penthouse that had become their sanctuary, Sophia stood at the window watching the city lights twinkle below. Ethan joined her, slipping his arms around her waist. "Any regrets?" he asked. She thought about the girl who'd walked into Winters International all those months ago, desperate and innocent and terrified of taking up too much space in the world. That girl was gone, replaced by someone stronger, more dangerous, more alive. "Just one," she said, turning in his arms. "What's that? I should have asked you a question during that first interview." "Oh, what question?" Sophia's smile was pure mischief. "Are you ready for a wife who knows how to use explosives?" Ethan's laughter filled the room, rich and warm and full of the promise of adventures yet to come. "Bring it on, Mrs. Winters." Outside their window, the city sprawled, endlessly, full of possibilities and dangers and stories waiting to be written. But inside their sanctuary, wrapped in each other's arms, Sophia and Ethan had already found their happy ending. It had just taken a little more gunfire than either of them had expected. The end did like this video if the story touched your heart. Subscribe for more emotional tales, and share with someone who believes in the power of true love. And let us know in the comments. We love connecting with our global community of romance lovers.